Hi everybody, this is the Cassandra Quick Start with an emphasis on quick. Let's see how long it'll take us to get going on this. So these are the instructions I'll be following. There'll be a link to these instructions below the YouTube video. So just check at the comments there and you'll see this link. So let's get started. 1, create a new Cloud9 workspace just to make sure I have enough room to do everything. So let's go ahead and do that. Call it Cassandra. And while that's working, the next item on our list, let me move this over, is follow the instructions. I give a link here. That link takes us to this installing Cassandra. This is an old version of Cassandra. I couldn't get Cassandra 3 running in Cloud9, even though I tried, and a number of people have tried to get it working. So we're just going to stick with this. There's not too many differences in syntax. There was a big change in Cassandra earlier than 2.0, but I think we're going to be good. All right. So the first step here is number 2, add this repository to our list here. Maybe. Then I believe there's adding a key. We're skipping this step 3 because it's only for Debian systems. It's this repository key one I'm going to use here. Then I'm going to go sudo apt-get update. Okay, and now I'm going to install the Cassandra, which is this command. Okay, now it should be running. It probably isn't, but it tells us to stop it if it's not running. Let's just see if it is. It's running, so let's stop it. And now there's a host of things we need to do when it's stopped. One is we need to remove one or a set of files. That's this command right here. The other is we need to edit a file. I specify that it'll be in that README file that I include with this. So let me go ahead and edit that. And I don't remember what line it is. It's the ulimit line that I'm looking for here. Sorry for we're getting there. There it is. So this line, you really delete it, but I just like commenting it out. I don't know why. Now let me save that. All right, and now I need to edit another file. Okay, and here I need to edit a number of things. Let me just bring that up on another monitor here so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm looking for the authenticator. So here, by default, if I did nothing to this file, it would work fine, except it doesn't require any login information. So you just say CSQ, I goofed. Yeah, CSLSH, and it would take you into the shell without having a login. So I just like having a login feature, and so that's why I'm editing this file, to make sure that it requires a username and password. And we're getting close. So here it tells us what it should be. So allow all authenticator means it doesn't perform any checks. It just lets anyone log in. This password authenticator requires a login. And the default login is Cassandra, username, Cassandra, password. So that's what that change does. A little further on, this is what will restrict access to various tables. And as we've been talking about in SQL, that's always a good idea. So this allow all authorizer means anyone can do anything with the tables, any table in any equivalent of a database, and that's probably not a good idea. So I'm going to go with where we have to grant permissions on databases, and that's this command. Okay, I think that actually looks good to me. Okay, and let me, I guess I don't want to do that. I'll do sudo service Cassandra start. And now let me try the status just to make sure it is started and it's running. So that's great. So now let's log into our using our client application. That's CQLSH. And if I didn't do those changes to that Cassandra.yaml file, that would be sufficient. But now that I did, I need to specify the user is Cassandra and the password is Cassandra. And let's stick with that for now. It'd be a good idea to change the password for Cassandra, but for now let's just get some basics out of the way. Cassandra is pretty much like SQL. There are some differences. Databases are called key spaces in Cassandra, and let's go ahead and create one of these. Well, let's call it pets here. So that would be, it doesn't look that much different than an SQL like Postgres. Here's where things change. So replication often, or the beauty of Cassandra, one of the only reasons you'd really use Cassandra is because it really easily scales. So we can have it running on multiple machines in a cluster. And when we have a lot of machines in a cluster, we want to specify, well, how many copies do we want of this database? What algorithm do we want to use to distribute the copies among the machines in a cluster? So that's what this with replication part is all about. This part here means simply go, when we have a ring of machines, simply go clockwise along that ring to distribute the data. So that's what this simple strategy is. This is how many copies to make. Well, I only have this running on one machine, so it's going to be 1. And now I can describe key spaces. And you see now I have that pets in the key space, or the equivalent of a database in the on the server. All right, so let's create a table. Before we do that, we need to actually change into that database or use that database. Again, it's really called a key space. And that command is simply use. So I'm going to use pets here. Tells me that I'm in pets. And now I can go ahead and create a table. So there's going to be a name of, let's call it dogs actually. So there's going to be the name of a dog, the breed of a dog, So you see it looks pretty similar to Postgres or any SQL type thing, even though it isn't an SQL database. Age is an integer, and let's say that's good enough, and I need to say what the primary key is. And that'll be the name of the dog. So for now, keeping life easy, I'm assuming that's unique. And I can describe that table, if I can spell describe. And along with the information of what I entered, the structure of it, it gives me all this other information, which for now we're not going to go into. And let's insert some entries into this database. And you'll see this looks identical to how we do it in SQL. And the name of my dog is Bodhi. It's a standard poodle. And Bodhi's 4. Oh. I named it dogs here. That's my error. And I have another standard poodle who's 9. And my other one is Roz. And let's insert a border collie here. And one more just to have them. So here I have a small database of dogs. And now I can do find an instance. I can do select So that's cool. What I can't do is this. I can't say, show me all the dogs that are standard poodles. Sorry, there's my dog barking. And it gives me this error. And I'll pause here. Okay, sorry for that interruption. So I can't search on this because you can only search in Cassandra on indexed columns. And so far the only indexed one is the primary key, which is this name field. So if we wanted to search on breed, we can create an index. And this index is like this. And now I can search for that standard poodle attribute. And finally, we can make changes, and that again is very similar to SQL. So let me do that. Uh, 10, where name is, let's say it's Roz that I'm increasing the age on. And now if I do that select statement, I have Roz to be 10. So that's the basics there. Let me just stop and take a pause for my personal life and get back and talking a little bit more about just still the command line interface to Cassandra. Okay, let's have some fun here and get a slightly bigger data set in Cassandra. And I'm going to do that by getting some data that we've already been using, that city table from our world database. So let me go ahead and do that. First, I need to get SSH into my Linux box here. and go into PSQL, or Postgres rather. Change into that world database. Let's take a look at that city table. So it has the name, the ID number, country code, district, and population. That all looks good. I'll include that. But let's say I also want to have the country name, not just the country code. Normally with Postgres, we would just do a join on those tables. Join's really not possible in Cassandra. So I want to make a table that includes the name. So that's not going to be in 3NF, but we'll give that requirement up. So let me go ahead and do that. So, and what I'll do is I'll create a brand new table. So that new table is going to have this stuff. So C is going to be my city table. It's going to have the ID number. It'll have the name of that city. Let me call that, instead of name, I'll call that city, that column. I'll have the district. I'll have the country code. So this is all from that one table. That looks good. And then from the other table, I'll get the actual name of that country, but let me not call it name, I'll call it country. And then finally, I'll get the population. And the new thing is I can create a brand new table by going with this command into, and I'll just call that new city. And this stuff is the same. Okay, I think this is right. Let me just take a quick look at it. All right. Okay, that looks promising. I have 4,000 rows, and I think that's the number of cities that were in that table. Let me just select something from that table. Okay, and that looks good. It looks like I have those columns: ID, city, district, country code, the actual country then, and the population. Cool. Now my next step, I guess, would be to grab that, put that table into a file, so then I can do some munging of that data or that file and put it into Cassandra. So let me quit out of this. Okay, and there's this command pgdump. It's going to allow me to dump either a full database, or I can select which tables in that database I want to create a text file for. Okay, and this T is what tables I want to include. If I left it off, it would be the entire database, but I want that new city table. This means that I want insert statements, so insert blah, 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 values, whatever, rather than a slightly different way of creating that file. And those insert statements, as we've seen, are exactly what I want for Cassandra, so that's why I'm specifying, please give me those insert statements. And then, whoops. The next argument is the actual database I want. Now I'm going to redirect that into a file. I'll call that new city.sql. That looks good. All right, let me just see if I have that. All right, and it looks like I've created that file fine. All right, my next step then is to kind of slightly alter it to get it more into Postgres format. So let me go into my editor I like, Sublime. And it's called new. Oh, did I create it? Hold it. Let me just make sure I'm in the right spot here. Give me a second. Oh, I did it yet again, my current problem here. Just give me 1 second. I put it in the wrong spot on my virtual machine, and I just need to move it. The shared folder for Vagrant is this folder, so I'm just putting it in that shared spot. All right, looks good to me. Sorry, give me just 1 second here. Vagrant boxes. That was in my CS350M. And sorry for this delay. All right, so here's the new city SQL file. I'm going to just kind of get rid of these things that are Postgres specific. I'll create a table. Let me call it city rather than new city. And instead of ID here being an integer, I'm going to have it be a UUID. That's much more common in these, if I can spell UUID, and that's a text field. So that's more common in NoSQL databases to have that sort of thing. City, let me just concentrate a bit here so I don't make a mistake. These are all text fields. So I'm converting, what I'm doing right now is converting this from SQL into something that can be read by Cassandra. So I'm this create table. Oop, that's an int. I wasn't concentrating. And that's you. All right, that looks good. The easy way is to go here. I'm just going to the end of the file and get rid of some other crud here. All right, let me just stare at this just for a second to see if it looks good. All right, I think that's a valid Cassandra create table. All right, so I saved it now. I need to alter this stuff, so now I have UUID, not ID, so I'll be changing that shortly. Instead of these numbers here, I want to get rid of them and replace it with a UUID. So I guess there's two things I need to change. This I need to change. I guess I need to change this new city into city, actually. So three things, UUID and the numbers here. So I've created a Python file that'll help me do this. Let me find it here, and let me make sure I'm doing it right. So here I open the file, just read all the lines in, and as long as the line has the word values in it, so I'm going to be skipping lines like, I guess it's here, these lines, but I'm going to be altering ones that have value. If it's any of these lines, I'm just going to pass them through as is, so I'm going to be modifying the lines that have the word values in them. So that's this if statement. And then here I'm just finding what those numbers are. So later on, we don't know what the number will be here, but here's 293. So I'm going to find that and replace it with a UUID. So in order to find these arbitrary numbers, I'm using a regular expression, and that's here. So I'm finding the word values, has an open parenthesis, one or more numeric characters, finding those in the line. And then here's where I'm actually creating this UUID replacement. Here's where I'm replacing that number group, like entry 293, with the UUID I created. And here I'm just replacing the word new city with the word city and replacing ID with UUID. So I think that looks reasonable. Up. Maybe not. Where am I here? Okay, and let me call it new city, if I can spell. All right, so I should have a new city there. Let me open it in my editor instead of just so there I've changed that UUID. There's an actual UUID rather than the number. So, and let me just stare at it for a second. So I declare that to look reasonably good. All right, so let me move that into Cloud9. And for that I will go here. New city CQL. All right, looks good. I'm just going to drag that off to Cloud9. Okay, and now let's create a key space. What am I? I'll just call it world. Looks good. Okay, now I'm going to source that new citycql file and pray for the best. Okay, so now I have that file in, I think. So the primary key here is the UUID. Well, actually, since I have this up, I can search for it. Let me just grab one here. And so I have that first entry. And we see that we'd really not be searching on this UUID. Rather, we'll probably be searching on city or maybe country or maybe even district. So let's create some indices here. Did I call it the city table? I forget. From city. All right, let's see if this works. So let me find the one city I know is in New Mexico. And it finds it. So that looks good to me. So let me just pause for a minute, and the next thing I'll show is how to use Python to get this working. All right, and the next thing I want to do in my Fun with Cassandra exploration is just deal with some passwords and a little bit of security. So let's do that before going into the Python realm here. So first, the login, if I remember right, is that we've been using so far is Cassandra username, Cassandra password, and man, everyone knows that. That's the default password. So let's change that. And let me give a password here. Let me stick with my usual one for these demos, Kirby K9. Kirby, by the way, is my first standard poodle I ever owned quite a number of years ago, so he's kind of immortalized in these throwaway passwords I demo. All right. And that looks good to me. All right. And now let's actually create a user. And since it's the world database, I'll say Carmen. And here I should actually pick something reasonable. Let me see. It's a short password. I'll never remember this. So for the demo, I'm just going to stick with Kirby K9. Obviously, this is the wrong way to go, and you should actually pick a better password. Uh-oh, I'm forgetting my syntax. I don't know if this is right. With on key space world to Carmen. Okay, so I believe we have that down. All right, so I think our basic stuff is set up. And let me actually quit out of my database here, because the next thing we need to do is we need to get that little bit of code that will enable us to do access this database in Python. And for that, it's the usual command, sudo pip install. We just need to know the name of what we're trying to install, and that's just called Cassandra driver. And that was sure easy. All right, So let's make a little bit of code here that does it. Okay, let me bring that up my cheat sheet on my other computer here so I can see what I'm doing. This is the equivalent of the connection, or the import statement that will enable us to make this connection. This we wouldn't need if we didn't really make all those changes to the Cassandra.yaml, the YAML file, which required that we actually log into the database server, because by default there's no passwords, no permission problems. You can access anything. So this is the reason I'm doing this, is because we enabled all those password features. And here's where it's sort of like the connection string we used before. Okay. And here is that. Oh, Kirby K9. Cool. Okay, I think we're good. Let me just save this as a Python file. Let's call it simple. All right, sweet. All right, now finally I can make the connection. Cluster equals and so that was the equivalent of the Postgres connection. Now we need the equivalent of that cursor object, and that's called session. Specifying what database to connect to. And my execute is this statement, where here I'd put whatever select statement I want to use. So let's just do a simple one. Let's just stick with the New Mexico example. Well, let's pick something else. Let's pick Arizona, because that I know has more than one city. Okay, and let me change which quotes I use just so I don't have to do any escaping of strings. Okay, that looks good to me. And now, so it'll return a list just like it did with Postgres, so I can just do a simple row dot, whoop, I don't have the word name anymore. It's called city. Okay, I sure have my doubts about this, but what the heck, let's give it a shot. Okay, so I'm going to run it. Okay, dokie. I'm just going to pause for a minute and figure out what I did wrong. Okay, and that was me sort of overreacting, thinking that I made some terrible install error when in fact it was a terrible typo. And let me see if this works. I actually didn't try it, but I think that's the error. And I don't know why I panicked so much on that example. All right, and that's worked. So I have this printing out all the cities in Arizona. So I have the city, the district, and the country, and here this guy is limited just to this world database. So that's sort of the basics of Cassandra, just in a nutshell. I haven't really addressed why would we want to use it rather than Postgres, which I'll do in the next video, but at least it's enough to kind of get you started and just start playing with it. And enough to do the rudiment that's coming up. So I hope this was helpful. Take care and have a good rest of the day.